Let's see what happens. I'm talking. Pelham's leaving us.
Bye.
Pelham's abandoning the live stream. Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to the Dragon Plus live stream. This is me driving and doing the live stream at the same time. I have to make sure that it's actually right. It is. It's live now.
We are actually being watched by human beings out there. So hello everyone.
Hello, welcome back. I know it's been a while. We last talked 2 weeks ago when Mr. Crawford was back on. We were off last week. We ran another vodcast. I was down in Orlando, Florida for Give Kids the World, a little charity event there.
Oh, nice.
It was. I had two jobs, Santa's helper elf and scrape. And anyone who's ever worked food services knows you want Santa's helper elf and not scrape during the breakfast shift. But yes, now we are back with Jeremy Crawford, the lead designer of the Player's Handbook and lead rules designer of Dungeons & Dragons.
That's me.
Yes, and as you are aware, I'm a bit under the weather. So much like Marion Ravenwood's drinking opponent, I'm just going to sit here quietly, and then you'll just notice me collapse off my chair in the background as we speak.
And before we were live, when I discovered that poor Bart here has been getting over a cold, I was saying, I'm going to sit over here so that I don't catch the cold.
Everyone always tells you, like, oh no, I'm past the contaminated stage. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, if you're sick,
That's
you're
always
sick.
when you then pass it on to
Exactly.
somebody.
It never is true. Any home remedies? Any personal home remedies for getting over the cold?
Just rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, if I get sick, I am straight to that sofa. And so I would say binge watching shows while half awake on the sofa, that is my favorite home remedy when I'm sick.
I did half of that, as I'm wont to do. The other half was just all work, which is a terrible idea. But then I started watching, Amazon has a new sort of adult animated series, Unbroken, something along those lines. Anyway, it's very good, despite the fact that I cannot recall the exact title of it at the moment. Unbound? Somebody in chat, please help me out.
I don't know what the show is.
Oh, it's good. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, we've been watching What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yes. It's still holding up for you?
Oh, it's hilarious.
I have to. It's on Hulu, right?
Yes. Yep.
I feel like there was a point where it was, we got Netflix. That's good, great. Oh, now Amazon has their, and now it's like Disney, NBC, Hulu's on, like, where does it end? When does it stop? But I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll all go full circle, and those of us who no longer have cable will end up going back to having cable if it becomes too expensive to have all these services.
I'm this close to cutting the cord because you don't need it anymore.
Oh yeah, we haven't had cable for years. Yeah, we just cobbled together all of our viewing with different streaming services.
I'm excited to go down that road. Yeah. But we do have actual pertinent topics for us to discuss today. We have a couple of releases that came out. Of course, Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus dropped yesterday into game stores and on online venues, wherever you choose to make your purchase. Anything you'd like to shout out about this fine campaign source book that just released?
I love that this book is totally bonkers and feels like it has a little bit of everything. Like we do a deep dive into Baldur's Gate, so if you're looking for a Baldur's Gate source book, bam, you have it in this book. We then do a whirlwind tour of the first level of the 9 Hells. So hey, you want some infernal adventuring? We've got that too. You want some war machines? Bam, those are here. You want infernal currency, new monsters, wacky NPCs. It's sort of like this book has it all.
Mad Maggie. Can't go wrong with Mad
my
Maggie.
beloved Mad Maggie. To me, this book should be called Baldur's Gate: The Mad Adventures of Mad Maggie.
I was just reading, when I'm sort of searching for book material, reading it's just fiction. Sometimes I'll go to the Internet Movie Script database, and they have scripts from the various movies. They have one from Legend, and I was just reading through that one. Like, oh, it's always a little interesting to see the script as it compares to a film that you really enjoy and know, and see where the points of compare and contrast are. So.
Yeah.
Meg Mucklebones is very much part of that.
Oh, yes.
She has added scenes in the script, which they didn't include. I would have loved more Meg Mucklebones.
I probably have told you this before, every Haggai role play has a little bit of her in them.
She's the best.
Yes.
So yes, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is out now. To help celebrate and to thank you all for joining us live today, we're going to be doing 2 giveaways. The first, I believe, will be for a copy of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, and the second one later on in the hour will be for a copy of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, Dice and Miscellany. So
that is a long title.
It is, but it's a pretty cool dice product because it's not just a dice set, which is always welcome and appreciated to kind of help go along with the campaign, but it kind of comes with its own dice tray. It's got a map of Avernus. It has the size comparison charts for demons and devils, and then the encounter and story cards as well.
Lots of goodies.
With exclusive art from Max Dunbar, and this is my pivot. Max Dunbar also has a nice concept art feature in the latest issue of Dragon Plus. We wanted to talk with him. That is my second main announcement. Dragon Plus, since this is Dragon Plus live stream, Dragon Plus issue 27 finally dropped earlier today. It took a little bit longer than usual. There was a update to the app that has been in the works for a bit now. We moved to a new, more smoother, more stable technical backend. So we hope that you feel free. Please do update your app. Take a look at the new issue. Let us know in the reader comments, as always, what you think of it. And of course, suggestions for content and other improvements are always welcome. So. Dragon Plus issue 27 is finally out now. The cover art is Slobber Chops from our own Emmy Tanji as well. So.
Oh, Slobber Chops.
Yes.
That's one of the many things I love in that book, that cranky Tressum. And I love cranky old cats. So I see that painting of Slobber Chops. I'm like, oh, come here.
Now that's one musical I've never seen, and I know that's kind of making a resurgence because of the
Cats,
the new one.
See, I'd be more interested if it was called Cranky Cats. If it was a bunch of old cats, just really slow, just want to sit in the sun and cuddle.
Just pushing the set dressing off the stage, the edge of the stage periodically. The only thing I liked was the name of Mr. Mephistopheles. I always thought it was a cool name for a cat.
Yeah.
But so it goes. All right, let's talk Unearthed Arcana, because we also had a new release today, not just of Dragon Plus, but the latest Unearthed Arcana dropped regarding subclasses for the Bard and the Paladin. Correct?
That's right. Right on the heels of us also doing the Sorcerer and the Warlock.
Yes, I'm backed up. I'm got plenty of material here that we have not covered for weeks and weeks. So where would you like to begin? We wanted to kind of spend this session of Dragon Plus talking through the Unearthed Arcana documents. Do you want to go from recent to oldest, start in reverse order? I'll leave it to you if you have a preference for.
Let's do things in a way we've never done before. Let's start with the most recent and go backward in time.
All right, let's do it. So, and you can find, if you haven't visited the D&D website today, head on there, go to the Unearthed Arcana section. You'll see the latest article for the Bard and the Paladin is out now. I think we've kind of spoken officially, unofficially. The cadence of Unearthed Arcana these days is a bit as it makes sense, as opposed to here is a particular day of the month that we're going to be doing it. So you might have noticed the cadence has increased in the last couple of weeks as needed to get this material out.
Exactly. Back when we decided to no longer release Unearthed Arcana on a fixed schedule. We said what that will mean is there occasionally might be periods where there's no Unearthed Arcana, but it could also mean there are periods where you get it more than once a month, and we are now in one of those more than once a month periods.
A blue moon.
Yes, yes. I think maybe through the summer people might have thought, where hath Unearthed Arcana gone? Has it gone forever into that dark night? No, it is still alive and well, and right now it is booming.
So let's do that. Let's talk through the Bard and the Paladin. If you do have any particular questions regarding the most recent Unearthed Arcana for the Bard and the Paladin, please do put them in chat. Please do preface them with question. And TK, I see TK has joined our fray and is submitting them our way. So let's get to it.
So, quick thing, it's always worth us repeating occasionally. Unearthed Arcana is playtest content. We encourage you to read it, try it out at your table, but keep in mind that this is material that is still in development. So you might hit some speed bumps, you might encounter some glitches. That's one of the reasons why we look to you for feedback to help us identify where those glitches are, and also to hear from you what you like and what you don't like, because we are all about focusing our attention on the things that please the largest number of D&D players as possible. And so we study the survey feedback very carefully and use it to inform our decisions about what we devote our attention to in the months ahead. And there is, as always with Unearthed Arcana, the possibility that if something is super popular, it could end up in a future book, and then at that point become an official part of Dungeons & Dragons.
And on that note, if you do look in today's Unearthed Arcana, there is also that survey link for the previous iteration for the Sorcerer and Warlock. So please do give it a try, test it out around your table. Please do send us your feedback via the survey. It's invaluable to us, as Jeremy says.
And even if you're really busy and don't have a chance to try any of these subclasses out and play, we still enjoy getting your feedback simply based on your reading of the subclass or whatever it is that we're offering at that time in Unearthed Arcana, because we also want to know if things are unclear to you, what story elements excite you, what class features are really inspiring, and because you're enjoying imagining using them in play. All of that is useful information for us.
Yes.
So today we have a pair, a Paladin and a Bard, each with actually a very different theme. The Bard is all about, in essence, words, and this Paladin in some ways is all about deeds, as well as the body. So the College of Eloquence Bard, this is the Bard option for anyone who has ever wanted to play the Master Orator. Now, any Bard can honestly be a Master Orator, just as any Bard can be an accomplished musician.
Right.
But this subclass specifically drills into playing the Bard who has mastered words, logic, being persuasive, being communicative in a way that, again, all Bards are able to communicate with people, have access to spells that will allow them to jump through language barriers. This Bard, though, right away at third level gains the ability to communicate with any creature at all. This feature is what we would sometimes refer to as a ribbon, meaning a flavorful element in a subclass that doesn't have it doesn't contribute to the class's combat potency per se, but is a really wonderful bit of flavor that gets at what this Bard is all about, and that is communicating with anyone or anything. This lets the Bard roll their Bardic Inspiration die, and the number indicates the number of creatures they can pick to talk to, and those creatures then understand the bard, even if those creatures don't even have a language. So if you ever wanted to give an oration to squirrels or other creatures who normally wouldn't be able to understand you, here you go. And this ability, universal speech, also makes you more persuasive at the same time.
Question on that already. Official Condad asks about that third level ability, universal speech. Does it grant the bard to also understand those they have targeted if they don't share a language?
No. Universal speech does not give you any ability to understand them. It gives them the ability to understand you. And it...
An important distinction.
Yes, because again, you are giving a speech, essentially. This does not, in its current design, allow you to understand what the animals are speaking. You would need to use some other magic for that. But this would allow you to communicate to them and to do so persuasively. This is also very useful when talking with other humanoids who might have a language you don't know. Basically, it means this bard, no matter where they go in the multiverse, has a ready tool for communicating with anybody.
You're going to talk your way past the doorman.
Yes.
Any establishment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Because given how this works, it is random, the number of creatures you can affect, but you will always get to affect at least one. So yes, if there is that guard at the door who you want to persuade, you can, and you don't know their language, universal speech is the right tool for the job.
That makes me sound of like the universal way to get past the doorman in any language. Just slip them a, $20 bill.
Yes, we could have made this feature be universal bribe,
Right.
where it's a little piece of meat for certain animals, maybe a plant.
You don't need to know the language,
yes.
but they understand the context fully.
At third level, this bard also gets the ability to cast the Calm Emotion spell without expending a spell slot, and they can use this feature a number of times equal to their charisma modifier. This is basically some free spell casting, and it is free spell casting of a spell I don't actually see a lot of groups use, but when I do see it used, it is extremely potent. In fact, the cleric in my home game has made abundant effective use of the Calm Emotion spell. For anyone who is not familiar with the spell, it actually has two functions. It can calm the emotions of people you're allied with to suppress fear and being charmed. So if they're suffering from the frightened condition or the charmed condition, Calm Emotion spell can suppress the effects of those conditions for the duration of the spell. And then it also has another function, which is it can essentially leech the hostility out of a group of people. And so if you're ever in a situation where you just want the fight to end, Calm Emotions is your friend. Because if the targeted creatures fail their saving throws, the fight's over. Now, this doesn't, of course, make it any easier for you to defeat them by conventional means.
Right.
It's not an automatic win button in that sense, but it is, again, if they fail on their saving throws, it is a way for you to just stop a fight dead in its tracks.
It's a diffuse.
Yes.
Got it.
And we've put it in this subclass because, again, the concept is this is the bard who can persuade pretty much anybody. Really can talk even the most belligerent creature off the emotional cliff.
There's a great scene at the beginning of Django Unchained where the bounty hunter has to he's walking into a town, all guns are trained on him, and he effectively talks his way down.
That's right, yes.
And just using words and logic, it completely diffuses the situation.
I'd
It makes me think
about
of that.
Yeah, no, thanks for reminding me of that, because I loved that scene. At 6th level, this bard gets a feature called Undeniable Logic, and this feature has two different functions. basically sort of like calm emotions, the ability to help your friends or do something to your enemies. In this case, it's deal psychic damage and mess with your opponent's saving throws, or heal your friends and give them advantage on their saving throws.
Question on this. This comes in from Joppleton. Is it intentional that undeniable logic... Oh, good heavens. Hold still.
His screen is scrolling on him.
There's two questions from Joppleton on this one. Is it intentional that undeniable logic works versus any save, not just ones against spells? It even works against ones versus effects from magic items?
So
that might be two questions.
So it is true that undeniable logic affects saving throws full stop. It does not specify the sort of saving throw, and that is intentional.
Can an unconscious creature hear for the purpose of granting advantage on a death saving throw?
So there you would need to look at the definition of the unconscious condition. If your question is, can an unconscious person hear?
Yes.
And so we would go, I'm going to open up, as I so often do on this show, D&D Beyond, and let's look up the unconscious condition. All right, so we go there, and we see that an unconscious creature, and if you have your player's handbook handy, anyone listening, you can open up to the conditions appendix toward the back of the book, and here we see an unconscious creature is incapacitated, can't move or speak, and is unaware of its surroundings. There are then several other bullets, none of which have to do with the creature's perceptiveness.
Okay.
Now, none of those bits in that first sentence specifically say the creature can't hear.
Right.
It does say they're unaware of their surroundings.
That's a tricky one, because I see the story scene. You've got the bard cradling their fallen companion, giving them the "stay with me, buddy" speech. Does the person hear that for the ability to gain the advantage here? So,
as a DM, I would allow it, and also now, of course, I'll take off my DM hat and tell you design intent. So the design intent is that being unconscious does not deafen you. What we were getting across with that sort of open-ended, you're not aware of your surroundings, is meaning you're not, like, if I was unconscious in this room, I'm not aware of everything going on in the room, but my sense of hearing has not been stopped. It just means it's anything I'm experiencing is probably going to be distorted or muffled. But by way of comparison, if you're looking at the conditions with me right now, take a look at the deafened condition, where we tell you a deafened creature can't hear. So if we had intended for the unconscious condition to deafen you, it would say so. And again, particularly when I'm DMing, I interpret the rules in the most generous way possible. And so because unconsciousness doesn't say it deafens you, I would not add that to the effects that the condition is already imposing upon the person.
It feels unaware of your surroundings. Feels like, excuse me, we just want to make sure that you're not considered sidelined, but still participatory in, like, oh, this guy's over here, da 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 da. Like, no, you're unconscious.
Yeah.
But still able to take advantage of certain select things, such as undeniable logic.
If anyone is having trouble imagining what that means, of I'm not deafened, yet I'm unaware of my surroundings. Basically, our touch point when we wrote that was being asleep. So imagine when you're sleeping, you are, at least most of us are, unaware of our surroundings. If you're not, if you are aware of your surroundings, you have a supernatural form of sleep. Yet we can be awoken by noises when we're sleeping.
Yeah, that's yeah. I can see that. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're going to hear the car backfiring and it'll wake you up. You might hear your partner snoring.
Yes.
It could
Yeah.
disturb you.
But that's a great question. And honestly, that first line of the unconscious condition is a great example of the kind of thing and especially the longer we're with the edition, I will look at something and say, you know what, it works, but if I were writing it today, I would probably make it a little clearer. So I appreciate that question. Shall we go on to infectious inspiration?
Sure.
All right, so the idea here is that this master orator, this paragon of eloquence, is able to inspire people in a way that no other bard can. And here's how that's manifesting mechanically. For those of you who've played bards, you know that you give bardic inspiration dice to other people. They roll the die, they add it to an ability check, saving throw, or attack roll. That bonus that the die is providing might cause them to succeed, or it might not. Whether they succeed or fail, that die is expended. The idea here is this inspiration is so deep, so persistent, you don't lose the die unless you actually succeed when you use it. Another way of saying that is if you have this bard's bardic inspiration die and you make a check and that check fails, you get to hang on to that die and you get to keep using it until you succeed when you use it. But wait, there's more. This is a but wait, there's more feature. If you then succeed, the bard can, if they're nearby, they don't have to be nearby. But if the bard has their reaction available, the bard can spend their reaction to then essentially transfer that successful bardic inspiration die to somebody else. And that's why it's called infectious inspiration. Your success that was spurred on by this bard's eloquence then inspires other success.
Not only have I heard the greatest halftime speech in the world, I remember enough of it that I can tell it to somebody else
Exactly.
and inspire them.
Exactly. So yeah, there is this notion of, whatever this bard said was so well timed, so perfect for the occasion that inspiration just keeps rolling on.
You might have just addressed this, but Rampaging Froghemoth, love the handle again, asks about that, about the die, being able to keep the die. Basically, the question is, well, when would an inspiration die expire? When there's a time limit that passes, or when would you not be able to?
So these inspiration dice follow the rules for bardic inspiration that are in the player's handbook, but just with these exceptions added in.
Okay.
And the main exception here is, unlike where in the PH it says the die goes away when you roll it, here we're altering that rule to say it only goes away when you roll it if the roll is a success.
Okay. Hopefully that addresses your question, Rampaging Froghemoth. We've got a lot of questions coming up when we get to the Paladin's level 20 ability as well.
All right. Well, how about we jump over to the Paladin?
Okay.
Because we have 3 more subclasses to cover.
Yes.
Some of these we might need to get to in our next episode.
So let's do that. The questions are great. It helps us better present what these options are and address the questions you have about them. So keep sending us your questions. If we don't get to them today, we will follow up specifically about your questions in a future Dragon Plus. Okay, so
Oath of Heroism.
Oath of Heroism.
Here we wanted to create a paladin who is less about being honorable or justice or being an avenger of wrongs. Instead, this is the paladin who is all about just being glorious, and also the paladin who might have their paladin abilities because they're descended from a god, or they they were born under, blessed stars or something. This paladin, again, is less about doing right in the world and more about just doing awesome things wherever they go. And so we built this paladin all about being awesome. And the inspiration for it, which I think a number of you have intuited based on what I've read on Twitter, are some of the ancient heroes of old. Like you can think of somebody like Gilgamesh or Hercules.
That was a question that had come up. Was that an inspiration for this?
Yeah, or Cuchulainn from Irish mythology. There are a lot of heroes from different myth traditions who have amazing athleticism, combined with supernatural might and abilities, which is why we decided to build this subclass in the Paladin. A peek behind the curtain, we actually initially thought we might build this in the Fighter, but we decided we wanted there to be enough of a supernatural element that the Paladin ended up being the right home for it, because the Paladin has other abilities, especially at higher levels, that perfectly snap together with the abilities of this subclass. The ability, for instance, to shrug off disease and just heal wounds and whatnot, and also to mete out divine strikes. All of those things fit perfectly with this idea of the divine athlete or the demigod.
I'm grinning wildly. I just love the concept of that. Like the Paladin, not necessarily as the chivalric knight or the Dudley do-right, but just awesome guy doing awesome things.
Yes, you can imagine this Paladin might even be a bit of a dope, who has maybe through no mighty acts of their own has just been gifted with these amazing deeds. And I love the story of this Paladin. Maybe she just is sort of almost on accident doing great things because of these amazing gifts that she has.
It makes me think of the Tick or something like that.
Yeah. And so let's real quick scan over the abilities. As is typical for a Paladin subclass, this one has Oath spells at 3rd level. A number of you have rightly pointed out the delicious irony that the very first spell on the list for the Oath of Heroism is Expeditious Retreat.
Yes.
Because what is the first part of Valor?
Discretion. Discretion is about it. Yes, that is a question that Grand Pyromania just asked. Was it intentional to provide Expeditious Retreat?
Yes, Expeditious Retreat is definitely intentional, not for the humorous reason, although again, I love the delicious irony of it being here. No, we picked it because contrary to the spell's name, which is a name we've inherited from previous editions of D&D, the spell is just about making you faster because it allows you to dash as a bonus action, and we wanted this Paladin to be able to zip around the battlefield or wherever the Paladin is, because again, we wanted this Paladin to be the Paladin of supernatural athleticism and also just glorious deeds. But again, there is this fun irony that is there. Then we go into Channel Divinity, where you have the Peerless Athlete ability. This is largely here for non-combat situations. Imagine this Paladin showing up for some martial contest or a marathon, and they might use this Channel Divinity to show off. But again, this Channel Divinity option could also see some use in combat. The combat option, however, is Legendary Strike, which is all about you having a greater chance of scoring a critical hit. And it lasts for a minute, so in most cases that means it will last you throughout a single battle. And if you're wondering, is this good enough, keep in mind this Paladin has Divine Smite. So if this does trigger, you roll that 19 and get that critical hit, and then you combo it with your Divine Smite, delicious.
Elwarius had a question about that. Greetings, Elwarius. I owe you an answer on email. He was curious about the design intent of the 10 minutes on the Paladin's Peerless Athlete and Living Myth. Seems long for a battle and short for exploration. I suppose, where did the 10 minutes sort of derive from a design standpoint?
So when we do a 10-minute duration, it is often meant to be usable in combat or outside combat. And then when we have the outside combat in mind, if we do 10 minutes rather than an hour, it means we're wanting to give you still a pretty focused period of the ability, but not an extended period, which is why we don't go all the way up to an hour. Peerless Athlete at 10 minutes, this is not going to let you, for hours or even an hour benefit from this, but it's going to give you a boost that you can exploit for the next 10 minutes.
You get a coffee break length duration for this.
Right,
okay.
Right. But again, we'd love to hear in playtest feedback what people think about that kind of thing, because that is certainly adjustable. Like if we take this subclass to the next level in our game development, things like durations often get adjusted as we examine more carefully how things will function in a typical campaign. Then we get to Mighty Deed, where whenever you score a critical hit, see now this link back to Legendary Strike, or reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you can then basically wow people either by granting some creatures temporary hit points because they're bolstered by your Mighty Deed, or you can make people quake in their boots because you are so mighty in what you do. You will notice that in a number of our recent subclasses, we have provided options for how some features work. This was actually something that we started doing in our design more intentionally and more regularly when we were working on the Artificer. More and more, I like for features, and not all of them, but often, like if you have a subclass, I often like there to be at least one feature where you have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to its application. Depending, of course, on the archetype that we're trying to realize. If it's an archetype that is all about just whooping butt, I'm fine with everything being pretty offensive. Or if it's an archetype that's all about protecting people or healing them, again, I'm okay with it going the other direction. But if it's an archetype that sort of straddles the line about between supporting others and harming foes, I like to work in a choice so that people feel like their signature abilities have effectiveness in a variety of circumstances. Then we get up to Glorious Defense. This is your chance to basically say nope to an attack. It is a bit like the shield spell, but you are using your raw charisma to ward off attack, because again, imagine a figure like Gilgamesh, who it just is awe-inspiring, and you can picture, the goblin coming up or some other foe trying to attack this paladin and just being struck by the paladin's glory.
Right.
And that's why we named it Glorious Defense. And then if you cause the attack to miss, you can then immediately attack back. So a pretty juicy feature. Then we get to the level 21. Level 20, all paladins, paladins typically at this level get a sort of a transformative class feature where they assume sort of a divine state that is appropriate to the theme of their subclass. And so again, here we've done a mix of combat and non-combat effectiveness. The non-combat effectiveness, although this could also see use in battle, is you are blessed with otherworldly comeliness. gaining advantage on all charisma checks. And then the other two effects of this are being able to turn an attack that misses into a hit, and then when you fail a saving throw, being able to use your reaction to succeed instead. Now, your reaction might also have been used for your glorious defense or for an opportunity attack. So by 20th level, this paladin definitely has some reaction choices to make, and that is intentional in the design.
That's one of my favorite names for an ability.
The Living Myth?
Living Myth. Yeah. That just sounds great. Me with 8 O's. Is the level 20 ability to succeed on a failed save unlimited during the entire 10 minutes that Living Myth is active?
No. So if you do, during the 10 minutes, if I understand the question correctly, during the 10 minutes that Living Myth is active, any time you fail a saving throw, you have the option of using your reaction to succeed on it instead. But you must use your reaction every single time if you're going to try to turn a failure into a success. So that means if you've already used your reaction on a particular round and you fail a saving throw, you're not going to be able to use Living Myth to turn it into a success.
Okay. I've got a question on Mighty Deed, a question on Glorious Defense. Let's work backwards. In terms of design and in relation to Glorious Defense, what causes a decision to be made regarding whether or not the player must use the reaction before or after the DM calls out the attack roll?
It really depends on the effect, and it also depends on the level that we give you the effect. It also depends on how stingy we are with the resource that you use to create the effect. Here, this is specifically meant to be a response to being hit. And then attempting to turn it into a miss.
So it sounds like there's multiple factors in play when creating an ability. In this one, the story design felt like you attack me, and it's meant to be a sort of reaction to your attack as opposed to before your attack.
Exactly. It also sometimes has to do with how much time at the table an ability might take. It is almost always faster to have as a trigger something that is certain rather than uncertain.
Okay, yes.
And which is to say, it is faster at the table to tie something to a hit or tie it to a miss rather than tying it to a hit or a miss.
The goblin comes at you, I'm going to do this. Well, it hasn't attacked you yet. Okay, well, if it does, let me know, and then I'm going to, forget all about that. It attacks you, and then here's what I'm going to do.
Right. We tend to be more generous with limited use things or high level things. So this is a 15th level thing where there is more certainty built into it, and that is the certainty you have been hit. Rather than, say, a lower level ability where we might say burn your reaction when you are attacked, but before you know you've been hit or not, and your reaction may or may not turn that hit into a miss. But again, this is the story of this ability, the level of this ability, the speed with which we want you to be able to use this ability. Those are all factors in our decision-making process.
All right, there is Glorious Defense. Hope that answers your question. For Mighty Deed, Harden a Fallen asks, is there a reason why Mighty Deed is not worded like an aura effect, similar to those level 7 features of other Paladin subclasses? Why make it this way and not that other way?
So for those of you who don't know, and this is a good question, many Paladin subclasses have an aura effect at this level, and even their name has the word aura in them.
Right.
This is not the first time that we have departed from that in the Paladin, but you will see that in effect it is an aura because there is this 30-foot radius, but we didn't call it an aura because this is not an always-on thing. Auras typically are things that just, like in this radius, creatures of a certain type or all creatures are affected in this very straightforward way. Like all of your allies in this aura have advantage on certain saving throws. That is sort of an example of a well-designed aura. We generally try to avoid auras that, like, they're always on, but they're not always effective, if that makes sense.
Yes.
This Mighty Deed only does something if you score a critical hit or reduce a creature to 0 hit points. Otherwise, there's nothing there. There is no aura.
Right.
So we certainly could have come up with something else entirely, but we really wanted an ability here that was all about you doing something glorious and that producing a response within creatures nearby.
As opposed to aura of awesomeness.
That's right.
Like, well, yes, you're awesome.
Yes.
This is a thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we've gone through the Bard and the Paladin. We got about 12 minutes left. Did you want to touch on Sorcerer or Warlock?
Let's touch on them, and then maybe we can dig into some more questions in our next episode.
All right, sounds good. So again, if you have questions regarding the previous Unearthed Arcana for the Sorcerer and Warlock, please do send them our way. And again, if we did not get a chance to get to them today, we do collate all the questions. We'll get to them in a future episode.
So, Sorcerer and Warlock.
Yes.
These are our tentacle friends.
Yes.
The Aberrant Mind Sorcerer and the Warlock, whose patron is the Lurker in the Deep, are both all about tentacles and slime and psionic-like abilities. These both are super fun. And let's dive right into the Aberrant Mind. So the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer is our exploration of a sorcerer whose sorceress origin is some kind of aberrant force, whether that is the far realm itself, or an elder brain, or an aboleth, or some other aberrant being in the D&D multiverse. You gained your sorceress power from this origin. And because of that, you then have a number of abilities that are reflective of that tentacle-filled and also psionics-filled background. And so right away you see at first level, you have the Invasive Thoughts ability, which is a form of telepathy, and then you also have a suite of spells that you have learned in addition to the spells you normally know as a sorcerer. And these are specifically your psionic spells that tie into your psionic sorcery ability that you get at 6th level.
And I was giggling, just again, of course, Ivard's Black Tentacles.
Yes, we had to put the signature tentacle spell on the Aberrant Mind spell list. This sorcerer is all about reality warping, whether in the mind, in their body, or in the world around them. And you can see that progression in the features of this subclass, where they have sort of mind-oriented abilities at first, then as well as their body is sort of showing examples of this distortion. But then it flowers their warping in revelation in flesh, this 14th level ability where you get to be wonderfully gross, flying around as you glisten with mucus, or have some other...
I am glistening with mucus right now, so...
You might be an Aberrant Mind sorcerer.
I could have been kidnapped by mind flayers, and the Ceramorphosis did not take. So that explains everything.
Yeah.
It's not a common cold virus.
So I just story-wise am a fan of this sorcerer, partly because I have actually wanted us to explore a psionic-themed sorcerer going all the way back to when we were working on the Player's Handbook. So I am glad that we are doing it. and I'm excited to see what people think of this glistening sorcerer.
I know some of your loves and interests, and it does have a very great Doctor Strange-esque feel to it.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, you are warping reality. You are popping into other people's thoughts. There is also this really fun thing of you not only getting a list of extra spells that you know, but when paired with your psionic sorcery ability, also the ability to cast a bit more of them, because they are, in essence, drawing upon a wellspring of psionic power that you have within yourself. And then there's a fun little twist as well, where when you cast your spells by that means, those spells require no components, which then makes them very much like the psionic spell casting that some of our monsters have, like Mind Flayers in the Monster Manual, where they have psionic abilities that are same in effect as certain spells, but when they use them, they don't require components. And when I say components here, I'm not just talking material components.
Right.
I mean also verbal and somatic. And so imagine, from a storytelling perspective, how freaky that could be, where just suddenly things happen and you didn't see anyone casting a spell.
Yeah.
So this is also a way for this sorcerer to be very scary, because Evard's black tentacles could just suddenly erupt,
Right.
and no one will know what caused it. So a lot of fun possibilities here.
Psionics has been such a odd strand of DNA within the game, going back to the appendices of the player's handbook, but it feels so correctly paired with the sorcerer. It seems like it's a logical marriage here. So I'm excited to see this subclass as well.
Yeah, and because the sorcerer is all about having innate supernatural abilities, and so again, that's why I've always thought that among the possibilities for innate supernatural abilities, psionic abilities are a real natural fit for this class.
Absolutely.
The Lurker in the Deep. I know we're short on time. This. If you thought there was sort of glistening tentacles potential in the Aberrant Mind, well, just wait. The Lurker in the Deep is tentacles from top to bottom, because this is a warlock who has made a pact with a creature like a kraken or a figure like Dagon, which you could also model using the Great Old One patron in the player's handbook.
Sure.
But this is drilling deeper into sort of the dark, watery depths. You could also imagine this patron being a primal elemental of some kind. There are a number of wonderful possibilities. Whatever they are, this thing is from a dark and wet place. And because of that, a lot of the abilities not only nod at the sea, but also at various horrific things that you create, like this devouring maw, tentacles that you use to grasp people. I think, as a person who spends a lot of my D&D time DMing, a lot of these thematic elements in the Lurker and the Deep Warlock will actually be wonderful to use for NPCs.
Sure, yes. I DM as well, mainly, but when I'm a player, I tend to be a Warlock, and this one definitely speaks to me, so that'll be a lot of fun.
In the theme of But Wait, There's More,
Yes.
in that Unearthed Arcana, there was also a new cantrip, the Mind Sliver cantrip. We created because while working on the Aberrant Mind and the Lurker in the Deep, I brought up to the team that for a while we've needed another psychic cantrip option, because the main one in the game is Vicious Mockery. And as much as I love Vicious Mockery, its thematic range is pretty narrow. It fits perfectly for the Bard and for some other spellcasters, but imagine, scary, Mind Flayer infected sorcerer criticizing people as the main form of your spell is not necessarily on brand for
Yes.
that spellcaster. And so I wanted us to have another cantrip option that specifically dealt psychic damage, and that gave rise to Mind Sliver appearing here. This cantrip is doing something that we haven't done in a cantrip before, and that is it's a cantrip that combos with itself. The image that I had for it, because you do damage with it, and then the target has essentially a penalty the first time it makes a saving throw before the end of your next turn. So, and the penalty manifests as them rolling a d4, and they subtract the number they rolled from the saving throw, which could cause it to fail. If no one else exploits that penalty, that means the person who casts Mind Sliver could exploit it on their next turn with Mind Sliver.
So this spell will weaken you to this spell.
Exactly.
And so on and so on.
And the idea being, and the image I used, it's kind of horrific, but again, it's on brand for these guys, is it's almost like you have a psychic spike that you're like pounding into the person's mind, and just
deeper, and once you crack it, it's going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Exactly. And that's sort of the narrative behind this, why this cantrip combos well with itself, but also combos well with any effect that imposes a saving throw.
All right. Well, my goodness, we're 2 minutes to 2 o'clock. So we've done it. We've gone through another hour, and we still have so much more to talk about.
Yes, we do.
We do have many, many more of your questions that we do need to and will get to at a future Dragon Plus live stream. But I will say before we kick over to D&D Beyond, thanks to everyone for tuning in, for watching, for our followers and subscribers, and of course our moderators. Thank you all so much. We'll just leave it again. We've got some events and activities surrounding not only Descent into Avernus, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, but tied into Extra Life as well. We have the podcasts Into Avernus is the Descent into Avernus podcast series, which is underway this week. New episodes releasing every day. And then Drive into Avernus is an Extra Life activity. Some of our Extra Life live streaming groups donating to their particular team page escalates their Infernal War Machine further. And at the end by October 1st, we'll see which team gets further along. So.
Very nice.
I will say...
And there's an Infernal War Machine right there.
Right there. The Extra Life team page for Dungeons & Dragons has gone beyond 100,000. So for everyone participating, thank you so much. It's going to a truly great cause. So thanks to everyone for participating in any way, even if it's just raising awareness and spreading the word. It means a lot, and it goes a long way. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We will be returning with Mr. Crawford in a matter of time. So send in your questions. We'll compile them. We will get to them. Thank you for sending them in as well. At 2 o'clock here, before I hit the end screen button, we're about to go over to D&D Beyond. But thank you as well for taking an hour out of your day to join us.
It's always fun. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
All right. It's time to hit the button, and hopefully this will work. There we go.
Did it actually work?
I think so, but I'm always dubious about the sound as well. Are we well and truly off?